Hi, everybody. Today, I want to go over 4 acronyms that I believe you should know to pass the real estate exam. Now, there may be other acronyms you found helpful, but for me, these 4 are the tops. So let's begin. First one is PETE. P-E-T-E. That stands for police power, eminent domain, taxation, and is cheat. The second one is TITIP, time, title, interest, and possession. That's for joint tenancy. The third one is MARIA, method, adaptability, relationship, intention, and agreement. That's a test for a fixture. And the last one I'm going to go over is STUD, scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand. That is for the essential elements of value. So without further ado, let's go into these 4. The first one I mentioned is PETE. When we're talking about PETE, we're talking about the 4 government powers: police power, eminent domain, taxation, and is cheat. Police power tells you how you can use the property. It doesn't take it away from you. You hear about things like building codes and rent control, zoning. Zoning would be another one. Those are examples of police power. Eminent domain is different, is that money is involved because they're going to take the property away from you through a process called condemnation. So eminent domain, they take the property away from you. Police power, they just tell you how to use it. Important distinction there. Next, we have taxation, which we all know is the government's way to collect money. Now, keep in mind, on property tax, that's a specific lien, whereas if it was income tax, that'd be a general lien. And last but not least is escheat. Escheat is the government's right to take the property when there's nobody else. So no friends, no family, basically you're Ebenezer Scrooge, so you can take the property. The next one I want to discuss is TITIP. TITIP stands for time, title, interest, and possession. And this comes into play when we're talking about joint tenancies. So joint tenancy is unification of 4 things: unification of time, title, interest, and possession. If you're talking about tenancy in common, the only one that will exist is possession. Now, since we're talking about joint tenancy, I should also mention the right of survivorship. And what that means, if one party passes away, the remaining joint tenants get the property. They can't will it to their heirs. Whereas a tenancy in common, if one party passes away, they can will it to the heirs because the other parties don't have the right of survivorship. So hopefully that helps. So I mentioned PETE, I mentioned TITIP, and now we have MARIA. MARIA stands for method, adaptability, relationship, intention, and agreement. MARIA is the test for a fixture. A fixture is personal property that is now considered real property because it is incorporated into the land. So when you talk about to test if it's incorporated in the land, you got to remember these 5 things: the method it was attached, if it's adaptable to the land, the relationship of the parties involved, the intention of the parties involved, and last but not least, frankly the most important part, the agreement between the parties. The way to remember that is MARIA, and that's the test for a fixture, and fixture is personal property that is now considered real property because it's incorporated into the land. Don't confuse it with a trade fixture, which is actually considered personal property because it's used for a trade or business, as the professional, like a dentist with a dentist chair, could take the property with them. Last but not least is STUD. STUD stands for scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand, the 4 essential elements of value. Some people remember STUD, some people remember DUST, you can remember TZDA for all I care. As long as you remember demand, utility, scarcity, transferability, or scarcity, transferability, utility, demand, whatever works for you. These are the 4 essential elements of value. Demand is if people want it. Utility, can people use it? Scarcity, how much of there is it? And transferability, can I sell it? That's why I use the acronym DUST. But if you use STUD, scarcity, how much of there is it? Transferability, can I sell it? Utility, can I use it? And demand, do people want it? So STUD. So let's review these acronyms one more time. So I mentioned PETE, which is the test for government powers: police power, eminent domain, taxation, and is cheat. I mentioned MARIA, which is a test for a fixture: method, adaptability, relationship, intention, agreement. I said to tip, which goes over the 4 unities in a joint tenancy: time, title, interest, and possession. And last but not least, I mentioned STUD, which is the acronym for the 4 essential elements of value: scarcity, transferability, utility, and demand. Well, I hope that helps. This is Joe, and these are 4 acronyms that I really think you should nail down when studying for your real estate exam.